A sound tore through the stillness, not the echo of heels or the beep of machines. A cry. Piercing, childlike, gut-wrenching. Lucas stopped mid-step, turned. The cry came from the volunteer reception desk. And there, like something misplaced in a painting, stood a tiny boy, shaking, sobbing, his small hands gripping a frayed teddy bear. No one paid attention. Nurses passed. Visitors whispered. A security guard glanced, then moved on. Lucas frowned. Where's his guardian? Hello, my wonderful family. Welcome to Love and Twilight, a haven where love blooms under the soft glow of dusk and every heartbeat tells a story. Here, we embrace the beauty of connection, the sweetness of devotion, and the magic found in quiet moments beneath twilight skies. Each story shared is a gentle reminder that love is both tender and timeless, glowing even in life's quiet pauses. Step into a world where passion whispers, hope lingers, and every sunset carries a promise of new beginnings. Stay with us and let Twilight guide you into love's endless embrace. Like, share, and subscribe to our channel so you would be part of us as a family. He glanced around, expecting a parent rushing back in panic. None came. Instead, the child hiccuped through a sob, rubbing his tear-streaked cheeks against the teddy's matted fur. The bear's button eye dangled by a thread. Lucas hesitated. Hospitals were filled with emotional noise, but this cry? It didn't sound dramatic. It sounded abandoned. Before he could overthink it, his feet were already moving. He knelt slowly in front of the child, careful not to alarm him. The boy's big slate-blue eyes blinked at him through tears. Hey, little man, Lucas said gently. What's wrong? The boy sniffled, wiping his nose on the back of his hand. Mama. I lost Mama. Lucas's breath caught in his throat. No one had stopped for this child? He nodded slowly. All right, let's find your Mama. What's your name? The boy hugged the bear tighter. Tari. Lucas repeated it back. Tari. I'm Lucas. Tari looked at him, tears still threatening. Are you a doctor? Lucas gave a soft smile. No, I work with hospitals. He extended a hand. Can I help you find her? Tari hesitated, then placed his tiny hand in Lucas's palm. The contact, it jolted something in Lucas. A tremor beneath the surface. He couldn't name it yet, but it wasn't pity. He lifted the child into his arms. The boy's head dropped onto his shoulder like they'd known each other for lifetimes. Lucas took a few steps toward the front desk, about to ask for a paging call. Then he heard a gasp. Tari. Oh my God, Tari. He turned toward the voice, and the world stilled. Everything inside Lucas halted. His heartbeat, his thoughts, his breath. The woman standing across the polished tile floor, the one in pale blue scrubs, hair pulled into a bun, a name tag swinging from her pocket, was Soraya, the woman he hadn't seen in 4 years, the woman who vanished after their love blew up like a missile crash, the woman who, once upon a time, was his entire future. Her hand flew to her mouth. Tari. She rushed over, eyes wide, heart in her throat. Lucas looked down at the boy, then up at her. The pieces clicked. Her silence, the dimples, the shape of his nose, the eyes. Lucas, she whispered, stunned. He didn't blink. His voice dropped. Hoarse, fragile. He's mine, isn't he? Soraya froze in place, like the floor beneath her had turned to ice. Please, not here, she whispered. Lucas's jaw clenched. Emotions churned violently beneath his composed surface. There were questions storming behind his eyes. Accusations, regrets. The boy, Tari, lifted his head and looked between them. You know my Mama? The question gutted him. Soraya took a breath and reached out, her fingers brushing Lucas's arm. That simple contact hit like an electric charge. Familiar, painful, alive. I'll explain, she murmured. But not here. Please. Lucas nodded tightly. The volunteer behind the desk gave a curious glance, but said nothing. Soraya led the way down a corridor, Lucas still holding Tari. And as they walked, the tension between them was so thick it made the hallway feel narrower, like there wasn't enough space in the hospital for the past they carried. They turned a corner and reached a quiet break room near pediatrics. Soraya opened the door, flicked the lights on. Lucas stepped inside. She motioned for him to set Tari down. The boy walked over to the soft couch, curled up with his bear, and instantly began to doze. The tears had worn him out. Lucas didn't sit. He stared. Soraya's arms were crossed tightly over her chest. Her eyes, once his favorite part of waking up, now avoided his entirely. He broke the silence first. "You had my son and never told me?" Soraya looked up then, fire flashing. "You didn't want to be told." Lucas stepped forward. "I deserved to know." "You deserved a lot of things," she replied, voice low. "But you didn't want me. Not really. You wanted what I could be for you." His eyes narrowed. "What are you talking about?" She didn't answer right away. Instead, she stepped over to Tari and gently adjusted the boy's blanket. Lucas's voice cracked. "You named him Tari? It means star in Swahili." He blinked. "Why Swahili?" Soraya looked over her shoulder. "Because I wanted him to shine." Lucas turned away. His hands curled into fists. So many years, so many sleepless nights wondering why she walked away. Now he knew. And yet, there was something else he felt. Gratitude? That she raised him well? That he existed at all? It was overwhelming. He looked at the child again. And for the first time in Lucas Varelli's life, success felt like an empty room. "I didn't know," he said softly. Soraya crossed her arms. "You didn't ask." Soraya took a long breath. "I didn't come back to hurt you, Lucas. I came back because this is where I got a nursing contract. Halston needed help, and I needed a reset." Lucas stepped closer. "He deserves to know me. He deserves stability. And I don't." Soraya looked up at him. "I don't know, Lucas. Do you?" The question didn't come with malice, just brutal honesty. And Lucas Varelli had no idea how to answer. The silence between Lucas and Soraya was the kind that made clocks irrelevant. Tari slept curled on the couch, breathing in soft puffs. A single curl had fallen over his forehead. Soraya instinctively tucked it away, her fingers trembling just slightly. Lucas stood near the door, arms crossed tightly over his chest. His eyes never left her. "You vanished," he said finally. "No goodbye, no note, no forwarding address. You made it clear," Soraya said without turning, "that everything had to revolve around you. I just stopped orbiting." His jaw flexed. "You still should have told me." Soraya's shoulders dropped. She turned around, finally facing him. "I was scared, Lucas." His eyes narrowed. "Of me?" She nodded. "Yes and no. I was scared of becoming invisible beside you. Scared that you'd try to own our child like he was a business venture. Scared that you'd turn something sacred into a marketing pitch." Lucas stepped forward. "That's not fair." "No?" She folded her arms. "You missed our anniversary to close a deal. Your assistant told me you were unreachable. I found out I was pregnant that same night. I was in Singapore negotiating a merger. It wasn't just a deal. It was a turning point for Varelli Health Tech. And you chose that turning point over the woman carrying your child." The room tensed again. The hum of the vending machine outside their door was the only sound. "I needed time to think," she said. And the time turned into distance. Then the distance turned into silence. And suddenly I was alone, with a heartbeat inside me. Lucas sat down, slowly, as if the truth weighed more than he could carry. His voice dropped. "I thought you gave up on me." Soraya's eyes glistened. "I thought you gave up on us." He looked down at his hands. Strong, capable. They had signed deals worth billions, broken companies and rebuilt them. But they hadn't known how to hold her. And now they didn't know how to hold what they had lost. "Tari," Lucas began, hesitating. "Does he know anything about me?" Soraya shook her head. "Only that you're someone special. He thinks you're a superhero." His eyes widened. "Why?" "Because he saw you in a magazine once. Said your eyes looked like his. I told him you helped people in hospitals." Lucas chuckled, dry and short. "That's not far from a superhero." Soraya stepped closer. Her tone softened. "I wanted to protect him from confusion. I didn't want him to ask why his father didn't come to his birthday, or why he only had one parent at the school play." Lucas looked up. "You could have given me the choice. You would have buried me under legal custody papers before I had a chance to breathe." Lucas flinched. She wasn't wrong. He stood again, pacing. "I never wanted to hurt you, but you did. I didn't know how to love you without trying to fix everything." "I didn't need fixing," she said. He paused, and in that stillness, Lucas realized the full weight of what he had lost. He walked over to Tari and knelt beside the couch. Gently, he brushed a hand along the boy's arm. Tari stirred. His eyes blinked open sleepily. Lucas whispered, "Hey, buddy, remember me?" Tari nodded. "You found me." Lucas smiled, warmth blooming in his chest. "I want to be in your life. Is that okay?" Tari looked over at Soraya, who gave a slight nod. The boy turned back and grinned. "Okay." Lucas's throat tightened. He swallowed the lump and leaned forward to kiss Tari's forehead. Soraya watched the moment unfold with a complex ache in her chest. Outside the window, a nurse wheeled a patient by in silence. Inside, Lucas stood again and turned to Soraya. "I want to be part of his world," he said. Soraya tilted her head. "And what about mine?" That question hung in the air, dangerous and naked. Lucas didn't answer right away. He didn't know if he could. Soraya stepped forward, lowering her voice. "You don't get to waltz back into my life with your expensive shoes and cleaned-up conscience. If you want this, us, then you show up, not once, every time." He met her gaze. "I will." She narrowed her eyes. "Say it like you mean it." Lucas took her hand, held it tight. "I will. For him. For you. For all the time I can't get back." She didn't smile. Not yet. But she didn't pull away either. Soraya gathered Tari's blanket and pressed a soft kiss to his cheek. Lucas watched, entranced. She was radiant in a way he'd forgotten, nurturing, quiet, composed. She was no longer the woman who wore lace lingerie under silk robes in Monte Carlo. She was a mother now, and stronger for it. Lucas cleared his throat. "Can I see him again? Tomorrow?" Soraya hesitated, then nodded, same time. "Hospital lobby." Lucas smiled faintly. "I'll be there." He took one last look at his son and walked to the door. Before leaving, he turned back. "Soraya." She looked up. "I missed you, in ways I can't even name." She gave him the smallest, saddest smile. "I missed who you could have been." The door clicked shut behind him. And for the first time in 4 years, Soraya exhaled like the world had been holding her hostage. That night she lay awake, watching the moonlight ripple across her bedroom ceiling. Beside her, Tari slept curled like a comma, but her thoughts were full sentences now. Questions, what-ifs, hopes she'd buried. Lucas was back. But was he different, or just back? Meanwhile, across the city, Lucas Varelli stood in front of his penthouse window, scotch in hand. The city blinked below, distant, loud, demanding. But his mind was full of one thing. Not his investors, not the next quarter. Just the soft weight of a little boy in his arms. And the woman who still had the power to shatter him with a single look. The next day, at precisely 5:30 p.m., Lucas returned to the hospital lobby. No entourage, no assistant, no phone to his ear. Just him. Soraya was already waiting, dressed in her navy blue scrubs, hair pulled back with a simple clip. Tari held her hand, bouncing excitedly on his feet when he saw Lucas. "Lucas." The boy beamed, running over. "You came." Lucas dropped to one knee, scooping him into his arms. "I said I would, didn't I?" Soraya watched them closely. Tari buried his face in Lucas's shoulder. The image tugged at something deep inside her. "Let's walk," she said quietly. Lucas nodded. They found a small park a block from the hospital, a tucked-away patch of green with benches, flowers, and a gentle breeze. The late afternoon sun cast golden light over everything. Tari ran toward a fountain at the center, squealing with joy. Soraya and Lucas sat on the bench, not touching, not looking at each other yet. "He likes you," she said softly. Lucas's jaw moved slightly. "He's easy to like." She folded her arms. "He gets quiet sometimes, especially at night. It's when he asks questions I can't answer." Lucas looked over at her. "What does he ask?" She took a breath. "Why he doesn't have a dad like other kids." Lucas winced. "I always told him his father was strong, brave, just not around. But now he's going to want details. He'll want to know why." Lucas leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "Then tell him the truth." "Which version?" she asked. "The one where I packed up in the middle of the night with swollen feet, and a heart that couldn't take one more voicemail from your assistant? Or the one where I stood at the airport gate, hoping you'd stop me, but you never came?" Lucas was silent. Soraya continued. "Do I tell him his father built an empire? but forgot to build a home? He sat up straighter. You could have stayed. We would have figured it out. No, Lucas. You would have decided everything. That's how it worked, remember? His face tightened. That's not fair. It is, she said without hesitation. You made decisions without me. Always. Where we lived, what I wore to galas, how I smiled in press photos. Lucas turned toward her fully now. You were never just my accessory, Saraya. No? Then why did I feel like an ornament? He stared at her. I loved you, he said. You controlled me, she answered. They were quiet again. Tari laughed in the distance, chasing a butterfly. Lucas exhaled slowly. I was raised by a man who believed love had to be earned, through success, through strength, through silence. Saraya looked at him now. I'm not your father. I know, he replied, but I was becoming him. She blinked. For a second, she saw the boyish softness behind his walls. I didn't leave because I stopped loving you, she said. He looked up. I left because I still did, but I couldn't love you without losing myself. Lucas nodded slowly, almost imperceptibly. What did you do after you left? He asked. Saraya leaned back. I moved to Barcelona for 6 months, stayed with a friend, had Tari at a local clinic, then came back to the States, got my license reinstated, worked my way up from overnight shifts to surgical triage. Lucas listened. No interruptions, no corrections. I never asked for anything from you, she said. I didn't want your money. I wanted peace. I wish you had told me, he murmured. I tried. But by then you were already doing interviews about your Forbes under 35 ranking. Lucas winced. He remembered that cover shoot. He looked happy. But inside, he hadn't been. He just didn't know why. Tari ran back to them, cheeks flushed. I saw a butterfly, Mama. She smiled. Did you catch it? Tari shook his head. It was too fast. Lucas extended his hand. Butterflies don't like to be caught, little man. You just enjoy watching them fly. Tari looked up. Like dreams? Lucas smiled, heart swelling. Exactly. Saraya watched him with a complex gaze. He wasn't the same man she left. Or maybe he was, and she was only now seeing the layers. I'm not asking for forgiveness, Lucas said quietly, after Tari wandered back to the fountain. I just want a chance to be better. Saraya nodded. Better for who? Yourself or him? Lucas didn't hesitate. Both. Later that evening, they walked back to Saraya's apartment building together. It was a modest complex with a swing set near the front. Saraya gave Lucas a long look before unlocking the door. Come in. He stepped in quietly. Inside, the apartment was warm. Books lined the wall. Toys were scattered with purpose. It smelled like lavender and toasted bread. Terry, she called. Go pick a bedtime story. The boy ran to his room. Lucas looked around. You've done well. I've done what I had to. Their eyes met again. Lucas cleared his throat. I'd like to help. Saraya raised an eyebrow. With what? Bills? No, with him. I don't want to be a guest in his life. I want to be his father. She hesitated, then act like one. Tari came back holding a book with a dinosaur on the cover. Lucas smiled. Can I read it to him? Saraya watched him, then nodded. Lucas knelt beside Tari's bed, reading in a calm voice as the boy curled under his blanket, clinging to his teddy bear. By the last page, Tari's eyes were heavy. Lucas leaned in, kissing his forehead. Good night, champ. Night, Lucas, Tari mumbled, already slipping into dreams. Lucas stepped out of the room and quietly pulled the door. Saraya stood in the hallway. She didn't speak, neither did he. But when she turned toward the kitchen and poured 2 glasses of wine, he followed. I'm not here to fix what I broke, Lucas said, gently taking the glass. I'm here to build what comes next. Saraya took a sip, eyes steady. Let's see if your actions speak louder than your vows. Lucas nodded, then reached for her hand again. And for the first time, she didn't pull away. Lucas returned the next evening. No calls, no driver, no distractions. He brought something small in his hand, a brown paper bag. Saraya opened the door slowly, still in her scrubs. Her face was unreadable. What's that? She asked, nodding at the bag. He held it up with a faint smile. Chocolate muffins. From the bakery across the street. Her brow lifted. You remember? I remember everything, Lucas replied. Soraya stepped aside, letting him in. Terry just went down. Lucas nodded. This is for you, then. He set the bag gently on the counter. The apartment was quiet. The kind of quiet that filled every corner of a space, not uncomfortable, but aware. Soraya leaned against the kitchen island. You never brought me flowers. You hated cut flowers, he said. Said they were dying things pretending to be gifts. She blinked. You brought me muffins when I got my first hospital job, she whispered. Hazelnut chocolate chip, Lucas replied. You said they tasted like victory. They stared at each other for a long second. The weight of 4 years settled between them, not bitter but heavy with memory. Lucas cleared his throat. I meant what I said yesterday. Soraya looked down. You said a lot of things. I want to be in his life, constantly, not just when it's convenient. She crossed her arms. And what about being in my life? Lucas stepped closer. That depends on whether you can ever look at me without remembering everything I did wrong. Soraya didn't answer immediately. Then, I still dream about you. His eyes softened. What kind of dreams? She hesitated. The kind that make me wake up angry. Lucas chuckled. Fair. She unfolded her arms. But sometimes, they end with your arms around me. Silence returned. But this time, it wasn't empty. It was charged. Lucas reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her face. Her breath caught. His thumb lingered on her cheek. Soraya, he said softly, I'm not asking for yesterday. Just one chance at tomorrow. She exhaled. You broke every part of me, she whispered, and I stitched myself back together. Without you. He stepped closer. Then let me be the thread now. Soraya leaned into his touch. Her fingers rose, grazing the buttons of his shirt. I don't know if I trust this, she murmured. Lucas lowered his forehead to hers. Then don't trust this. Trust me. And then, she kissed him. Not softly, not hesitantly, but like someone crashing into something they'd been running from for too long. The kiss grew urgent, breathless. Lucas lifted her onto the kitchen counter without breaking contact. Her legs wrapped around his waist instinctively. His mouth found the curve of her jaw. Her hands slipped beneath his blazer, tugging it down his arms. I miss this, she gasped between kisses. Your mouth, your hands. He paused just long enough to look her in the eyes. I missed you. Then his lips were back on hers, greedy, aching, deliberate. Soraya's scrub top peeled away. Lucas groaned at the sight of her bare skin. Still the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. She tugged at his tie, loosening it, unbuttoning his shirt with shaking fingers. Their bodies remembered the rhythm long before their minds did. The counter was warm beneath her. His touch was fire, familiar, desperate. Tell me to stop, Lucas whispered against her neck. But she didn't. She pulled him closer, and when his hands found her hips and lifted her slightly, she let go of every hesitation still clinging to her spine. They moved to the couch like gravity pulled them. She straddled him, lips devouring his. His hands were everywhere, slow, reverent, memorizing every inch like she was a hymn he'd forgotten. Soraya paused, forehead pressed against his. Tomorrow. I might regret this, she whispered. Then let me make it unforgettable, he said. She kissed him again, and the world disappeared. Later, breathless and tangled in each other on the living room rug, Lucas traced a finger along her bare shoulder. What now? He asked quietly. Soraya stared at the ceiling. Now, we pretend like this isn't complicated. He looked over at her. Do you want this to be simple? She shook her head slowly. No. I want it to be true. Lucas took her hand. Then let's be honest. Even when it's ugly. She nodded. I can do honest. That night, he stayed. Not because she asked. Not because he demanded. Because she didn't say no. And for Lucas Varelli, that was the most honest yes he'd ever received. Lucas awoke before the sun did. His arm was draped around Soraya's waist, her back pressed to his chest, her breath warm and even. Her hair smelled faintly of coconut, still the same scent that used to drive him mad with longing. He held her tighter for a moment, unwilling to move, unwilling to disturb a peace that had taken 4 years to find. But then her body shifted. She turned slowly in his arms and blinked up at him. Did we really do this? She whispered. Lucas nodded. Unless this is one hell of a dream. She smiled faintly, then bit her lip. You stayed. I didn't want to leave. She ran her hand down his chest. What happens now? Lucas stared into her eyes. Whatever you want. They stayed like that for a while, skin to skin, hearts catching up with bodies already entangled. But soon, the soft creak of a door interrupted the stillness. Mama, Terry's voice. Soraya jumped. Oh no. Lucas sat up fast, grabbing his trousers from the floor. Soraya threw on a robe and hurried out of the living room, hair tousled, cheeks flushed. Tari rubbed his eyes sleepily. I smelled muffins. Lucas emerged, buttoning his shirt. Hey, champ. Tari blinked. You slept here? Soraya glanced at Lucas. Lucas crouched beside Tari. I wanted to spend more time with you. Tari grinned. Do it again. Soraya's eyes widened. Lucas stifled a laugh. Let's get you breakfast, she said quickly, guiding her son toward the kitchen. Lucas leaned on the counter, watching Soraya flip pancakes while Terry arranged blueberries into smiley faces on the plates. So, what are your thoughts on bribery through syrup? Lucas teased. Soraya raised an eyebrow. Only if it works. Tari giggled. Mama always burns one pancake. Lucas looked at her, smirking. Still true? Unfortunately, she muttered, flipping one too soon. It tore in the middle. Lucas walked over, reached around her, and gently took the spatula. Let me... His chest brushed her back. She stiffened, then softened. His hand covered hers on the handle, guiding it with ease. Still a control freak, she murmured. Only when the stakes are high, he whispered into her ear. Soraya flushed. Later, with the dishes cleared and cartoons humming quietly in the background, Soraya and Lucas stood at the sink. She dried a plate slowly. Last night, he looked at her. She didn't finish. He stepped closer. Do you regret it? She shook her head. No, but... She sighed. You've changed, Lucas, but the world around you hasn't. Your name still opens doors. Mine just gets questioned at them. I want to change that. She studied his face. You say it like it's easy. It's not, but nothing worth keeping ever is. Later that day, Soraya and Lucas took Tari to the park. He ran through the grass, climbing, tumbling, squealing in delight. Lucas sat beside her on a bench. This feels right, he said softly. Soraya nodded. But we haven't talked about what this means. He turned toward her. Then let's talk. She inhaled deeply. Are you going to tell your board? He didn't hesitate. Yes. Her eyes widened. Really? Lucas nodded. They can fire me if they want. But I won't lie. Not about you. Not about him. Her voice was quieter now. What if the media turns it into a circus? Then we close the blinds and keep our family private. She blinked at the word. Family. Lucas saw it register in her eyes. She still wasn't sure she believed it, but she wanted to. That evening, Lucas walked them home and stayed for dinner. Terry insisted he sit next to him. Soraya set the table. Lucas poured juice. They talked about dinosaurs and dream vacations. For the first time in a long time, laughter replaced tension. When it was time for bed, Tari yawned. Will you read tonight too? Lucas nodded, following him to the room. Soraya watched from the hallway, arms folded but heart wide open. She heard Lucas's deep voice reading, animated, gentle, patient. She hadn't known this version of him existed, or maybe he'd always had it in him. He just needed a reason. Later, Lucas stood at the door. I should go, he said. Soraya stepped closer. Why do I want you to stay? He leaned in. Because we both forgot how good we were together. She looked down. I didn't forget. Lucas lifted her chin. Then let me remind you every day. He kissed her softly. This time, it wasn't rushed. It wasn't fueled by fire. It was steady, anchored, real. As Lucas walked into the night, he didn't feel alone. Not anymore. And Soraya, standing at the door, didn't feel abandoned. She felt seen. The third night Lucas stayed over. It wasn't planned. Terry had fallen asleep during a story, head on Lucas's chest, the worn-out teddy tucked under his arm. Soraya had walked into the room to find both of them curled together, Lucas fast asleep, hands still holding the book. She didn't wake them. She just watched. 1,000 memories, both beautiful and bruised, flooded back. But this moment was new. It wasn't lavish. It wasn't scripted. It was simple. And somehow, it was everything. Lucas stirred an hour later, blinking into the dim glow of the nightlight. He noticed Soraya standing in the doorway. "She's still the prettiest thing in the room," he murmured. Soraya smiled faintly, arms folded. "I didn't think you'd fall asleep." He looked down at Tari, still breathing softly on his chest. "He wore me out." She nodded. "That's his superpower." Lucas carefully slid out from under the child and stood. As he passed Soraya in the hall, she gently grabbed his hand. Their fingers stayed locked until they reached the bedroom. The air in the room shifted. It wasn't new, but it was charged. Lucas stopped beside the bed. Soraya stood behind him. Neither moved until she placed her hands on his shoulders. "You're different," she said softly. He turned around. "So, are you?" Soraya stepped closer. "I didn't think I'd ever want to feel this again." Lucas's voice was quiet. "Then let me help you remember." They undressed each other slowly this time. No urgency, no firestorm, just reverence. Lucas trailed his fingers down her spine like she was something sacred. Soraya's breath hitched as his lips found the place beneath her collarbone she'd once told him no one else knew how to kiss. Her hands skimmed his ribs, then pressed to his back. "You feel stronger." "I feel lighter," he whispered. She lay back on the bed, eyes wide open. Lucas hovered over her, taking in every curve, every breath, every expression she offered. "You're staring," she said softly. He nodded. "I'm grateful." Then he kissed her. Soft, deep, devoted. They moved together, not in haste, but in harmony. Lucas's touch was patient, careful, but sure. Soraya arched under him, gasping when he moved inside her slowly, letting her feel every inch. Her hands clutched the sheets, then his shoulders, then his face. Their rhythm was quiet, steady, a dance of rediscovery. He whispered her name against her skin like a vow. She clung to him like she'd forgotten what it felt like to be held without being owned. No talking, just breathing. No guilt, just truth. No past, just now. When they both reached their peak, it was not wild or loud. It was full, silent, shattering. Soraya buried her face in his neck, her body trembling. Lucas wrapped her in his arms, burying his face in her hair. They lay there afterward, tangled in warmth, not speaking, not needing to. Later, under the soft sheets, Lucas lay awake staring at the ceiling. Soraya rolled toward him, propping herself up on one elbow. "What are you thinking?" she asked. He looked at her, eyes gentle. "That I never understood love until I watched it sleep in the next room." She lowered her gaze. "You could still walk away. You have your company, your empire. I used to think that was enough," he said. "But that empire didn't say, 'I love you' at bedtime. It never made me laugh over burnt pancakes." Soraya traced a finger over his chest. "You scared me back then." "I scared myself," he admitted. She leaned in and kissed his shoulder. "What changed you?" "You did," he whispered. "The day you left, I thought I'd lost a partner, but it took me years to realize I lost my compass." The bedside lamp cast soft light on their skin. Soraya tucked herself beneath his arm. "Don't make me regret this," she said. "I won't. You don't get to hurt me again. I know. If you run, I won't chase you." Lucas kissed the top of her head. "I'm not running. I'm building." She looked up. "Building what?" He smiled. "A life with you, with Tari, one that doesn't need contracts or conditions." She stared at him a moment, then nodded. They fell asleep entwined, their bodies wrapped in something deeper than touch. And for the first time in 4 years, Soraya didn't dream of the past. She dreamed forward. The next morning, the smell of scrambled eggs drifted through the apartment. Soraya stirred, blinking into the early light. She reached over, but Lucas wasn't in bed. She rose quickly and padded out. In the kitchen, she stopped cold. Lucas stood at the stove, Tari on a step stool beside him, holding a wooden spoon. "Okay, now stir gently, buddy," Lucas said, guiding his little hand. Soraya covered her mouth with her fingers. Tari laughed. "Mama, we're cooking." Lucas looked up. "Team Borelli reporting for breakfast duty." She smiled, walking over. "Where did you learn how to make eggs?" Lucas kissed her cheek. "YouTube." She chuckled. He turned serious. "I want this, Soraya. All of it." She met his gaze, then whispered, "So do I." They ate breakfast at the table together. No announcements, no pressure. Just pancakes, orange juice, and a little boy chattering about cartoon dinosaurs. And two hearts finally learning what peace could taste like. The rhythm settled in faster than anyone expected. Lucas began showing up every morning. No announcements, no grand gestures. Just coffee in hand, a fresh shirt under his arm, and a soft good morning before Terry even rubbed the sleep out of his eyes. Soraya watched it unfold cautiously at first, but the consistency did something that roses never could. It built trust. One Tuesday morning, Tari woke before the alarm and bolted into the living room. "He's not here yet," he said, hands on his hips like a miniature officer. "He'll come," Soraya murmured sleepily, tying her robe. And 2 minutes later, the knock came. Tari sprinted to the door. "You're late." Lucas crouched to his level, grinning. "Traffic. You don't get points for traffic," the boy scolded. Lucas saluted. "Duly noted, Captain Tari." Soraya chuckled behind them, unable to hide the warmth blooming in her chest. That morning, pancakes became a tradition. Lucas would flip. Soraya would mix. Tari would spill something without fail. But it worked. The apartment rang with laughter and soft conversation. Lucas would sometimes stay until Terry's daycare drop-off, sometimes longer. He started keeping a tie and spare dress shoes in her hallway closet. Terry even asked if they could get bunk beds. For Soraya, watching Lucas evolve from a high-rise CEO to a man who carried dinosaur, lunchboxes felt like walking through a dream, one stitched together with real thread. One weekend, they took Tari to a zoo on the outskirts of town. Lucas wore jeans. Soraya wore a sun hat. Terry had a little backpack filled with snacks. They watched penguins waddle, laughed at the giraffes, and stood for nearly 10 minutes in awe of a silverback gorilla. At the petting area, Tari hesitated near the goats. Lucas knelt beside him. "What's wrong?" "They stink," Lucas whispered. "Just smile and don't breathe through your nose." Tari giggled, then stepped forward bravely with Lucas at his side. Soraya watched the two of them, her heart heavy with something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Later that day, a photographer near the zoo entrance offered to take their picture. Soraya hesitated. Lucas noticed. "We don't have to." But Tari beamed. "Please, I want one." So they did. Soraya stood on one side, Lucas on the other. Tari, in the middle, held both their hands. "Say cheese," the photographer called. But when the shutter clicked, they weren't smiling because they were told to. They smiled because it felt like something real. A few days later, Lucas arrived with a small brown envelope. "What's this?" Soraya asked. "A copy of the zoo photo." She pulled it out and paused. It was perfect. Tari's grin. Lucas's soft smile, her expression of surprised serenity. She stared at it for a long time. Lucas stepped closer. "I had a second copy framed. It's in my office." She looked up. "Your office?" He nodded. "Right where the stock market ticker used to be." Her eyes widened. "You replaced the ticker?" "I'd rather track joy than profit." She didn't speak, so he did. "I want to come home, Soraya." Her eyes searched his. "This is your home," she said quietly. "But don't confuse presence with commitment." "I'm not confused." "Then prove it." Over the next week, Lucas began doing more than just showing up. He handled bedtime when she had late shifts. He ordered groceries without being asked. He fixed the squeaky cabinet she kept meaning to call someone about. He didn't just insert himself into their lives. He earned his space in it. One evening, after Tari had fallen asleep beside a pile of toy cars, Lucas turned to Soraya as she folded laundry. "I've been thinking." She looked up. "I want to make a statement." Soraya blinked. "What kind of statement?" He rubbed the back of his neck. "About us, about Tari." Her arms stilled. "Publicly." Lucas nodded. "It's time." She put the laundry down. "Are you sure?" He stepped forward. "The world already knows who I am. It's time they know who matters." Her throat tightened. "You're risking your reputation. I'm protecting my son. That's not a risk. It's a duty." She held his gaze. "And what about me?" Lucas reached out, gently cupping her cheek. "You were never a secret, Soraya. Just a loss I wasn't brave enough to face, until now." That night, they lay in bed, wrapped in each other, no words, just quiet. The kind that felt like peace. the kind that only comes after long storms. The next morning, while Tari was brushing his teeth, Soraya turned to Lucas in the hallway. "You're really doing this?" He nodded. "Press conference. Tomorrow." She searched his face, and finally whispered, "Then I'll stand beside you." Lucas kissed her forehead. "I was hoping you'd say that." And just like that, the man who once chose power over people chose his family instead. It started with a single photo. Lucas was in line at the coffee cart outside Halston Memorial, sunglasses on, hand casually holding Tari's as they waited for their order. Soraya stood just behind them, smiling softly. It was innocent. Too innocent for the kind of storm it would unleash. By the time they got home that afternoon, the photo had been posted on a gossip blog, captioned with 4 damning words, "Varelli's secret love child?" Soraya found out first. She was halfway through folding laundry when her phone vibrated. 5 missed calls, 2 voicemails, and a blinking notification from a news app. She opened it and froze. "Lucas," she called out, heart racing. He walked in from Tari's room, still holding a storybook. "What's wrong?" She turned the screen toward him. His entire body went still. For a long second, neither of them said a word. Then Lucas sighed. It was bound to happen. Soraya's voice was barely above a whisper. "They're going to tear us apart." He took the phone from her gently, scrolling through the growing list of headlines. Billionaire bachelor, a secret dad. Who is the nurse behind the CEO's fall from grace? Family scandal or redemption arc? The next call came from his executive assistant. Lucas answered it on speaker. "Mr. Varelli," her voice crackled through, clipped and tense. "The board is demanding an emergency meeting." "Understood," he said calmly. "They're asking for clarification. Investors are rattled. There are concerns about image, liability, and—" Lucas cut her off. "Schedule a meeting for 8 a.m. tomorrow. I'll address everything then." He ended the call. Soraya watched him. "You're too calm," she said. Lucas poured a glass of water and handed it to her. "I've had worse mornings. But this isn't about stock price," she whispered. "It's about us." He nodded. "Exactly." They spent the rest of the day indoors. Tari watched cartoons, blissfully unaware. But the silence in the apartment buzzed like static. Lucas spent an hour on the balcony, phone in hand, fielding calls. PR, legal, marketing, HR, his mother. Each one had a suggestion. Each one tiptoed around the same core idea. Distance yourself. Disavow. Control the narrative. Lucas didn't say much, just listened, and then hung up. At dinner, Soraya barely touched her plate. Lucas sat beside her, not across. A quiet show of unity. "I'm scared," she admitted. "I'm not." She looked at him. "Why not?" He turned toward her. "Because for the first time in my life, I'm not hiding anything." She bit her lip. "They'll call me a gold digger." He shrugged. "Let them. They'll say I trapped you. Then I'll tell them you freed me." Her voice cracked. "Lucas." He reached for her hand. "I'm not giving up my son. Or you." The next morning arrived heavy. Lucas dressed in a charcoal gray suit. No tie. Collar open. No designer watch. Just simplicity. As he adjusted his cuffs, he noticed Soraya standing in the doorway. "You sure about this?" she asked. He nodded. "I've never been more sure of anything." Tari ran into the room holding his teddy. "Can I come too?" Lucas crouched. "Not today, champ. But I'll tell the world about you." Tari grinned. "Will they clap?" Lucas smiled. "They better." The boardroom was colder than usual. 12 directors, 5 advisors, 2 legal representatives, all staring. Lucas stood at the head of the table, shoulders square. "You've all seen the photo," he began. "Yes, that's my son. His name is Tari. The woman in the picture is Soraya, his mother, and the woman I still love." Gasps, murmurs, scribbled notes. "I will not deny him. I will not hide him. And if that means losing support, so be it." One director leaned forward. "You understand the implications of your statement?" Lucas nodded. "I understand what it means to be a father. The rest is negotiable." Another chimed in. "Your silence would have protected the company." "I've protected this company since I was 29, Lucas replied. "It's time I protect my family." A long pause. Then someone at the far end cleared their throat. I move that we vote on whether Mr. Varelli retains his executive privileges in light of this revelation. Lucas didn't flinch. Vote. Back at the apartment, Soraya paced the living room, phone clutched in her palm. She imagined him standing alone in a room full of suits, defending something the world saw as scandalous, but he saw as sacred. Then her phone buzzed. It was a message from Lucas, still standing, still CEO, be home soon. She dropped the phone and sank onto the couch, hands over her face. Relief crashed over her like a wave. When he returned that evening, Lucas found Soraya sitting in the kitchen, staring at the framed zoo photo. He walked over and placed a kiss on her forehead. You did it, she whispered. We did. He pulled her into his arms. And for the first time in weeks, neither of them spoke. Because nothing needed to be said. In the quiet, Lucas knelt down, resting his forehead against her stomach. Soraya blinked. What are you doing? Thanking you, he whispered. For loving me, when I didn't deserve it. She threaded her fingers through his hair. We're not perfect, Lucas. He looked up. But we're real, she said. And that was enough. The podium was simple. No frills, no backdrop of grandeur. Just a microphone, a line of reporters, and the Varelli Health Tech logo projected behind a white screen. Lucas adjusted his cuffs once, exhaled, then stepped up to the mic. Camera shutters clicked the second he emerged. Soraya stood just out of frame, behind a privacy divider near the stage exit. She wore a soft beige blouse, hair pinned up, eyes fixed on the man she once feared she'd never understand again. He looked calm, but only she could tell his fingers were flexing in slight tremors. He cleared his throat. His voice, when it came, was even. Sure, I won't take much of your time today. Just enough to tell the truth. A hush spread across the press room. My name is Lucas Varelli. I'm the founder and CEO of Varelli Health Tech. I've spent the last 10 years building a company rooted in innovation, precision, and care. A few nods from reporters scribbling on notepads. But somewhere along the way, I forgot that care shouldn't stop at the boardroom. He paused. Let it sink in. Recently, a photo of me and my son, yes, my son, circulated online. The headlines speculated. The public reacted. The board had questions. A few murmurs. No interruptions. I have answers. He looked straight into the lens of the center camera. Yes, his name is Tari. He's 3 years old. He's bright. He's curious. He makes terrible pancakes, but the best airplane noises. Smiles flickered. Lucas continued, voice steady. His mother is Soraya. She's a registered trauma nurse. She saved more lives this month than most of us will in a lifetime. Soraya blinked quickly behind the divider, hands clasped tight. I lost her once because I was too obsessed with winning, but I found her again because I finally learned that love is not a weakness. It's the strongest force there is. A beat. I'm not ashamed of them. I'm proud. His voice firmed. I won't apologize for being a father, and if that costs me anything, so be it. My legacy won't be built on press releases and quarterly reports. It will be built on who I loved and how I showed up for them. He took a step back, then added, quieter, and I'm here. For good. The press erupted in noise, questions flying, flashbulbs igniting. Lucas nodded once, then turned and walked off the stage. The moment he reached the hallway, Soraya was there. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. She wrapped her arms around him, holding him as tightly as she could. He buried his face in her neck, breathing her in. They know now, he whispered. She nodded. And they still stood. He looked at her. Because you were beside me. Later that night, they sat on the apartment balcony, wine glasses in hand, the city lights glittering in the distance. Tari was asleep. The zoo photo hung on the living room wall now, framed more prominently than any of Lucas's awards. I thought it would feel heavier, Lucas said, sipping slowly. Soraya glanced at him. It might. Later. He nodded. But right now? She leaned her head on his shoulder. It feels like the beginning. The next few days unfolded like slow waves. Social media caught fire. News networks debated his statement. Opinions surged on both sides. But something unexpected happened. People, real people, began to share their own stories. Fathers reuniting with kids, nurses working double shifts while raising children alone, women who chose to walk away from power to protect peace. Soraya sat on the couch one afternoon reading comment after comment beneath the press video. She looked up when Lucas walked in. They're not judging us, she said. They're thanking us. Lucas raised an eyebrow. That's new. She chuckled. Turns out vulnerability is relatable. The next board meeting was less tense. Lucas entered with Soraya on his arm. He didn't ask for permission. He simply introduced her. This is my family. If you can't build with them in the room, then you're building the wrong thing. No one argued. Some even smiled. That evening, while tucking Tari into bed, Lucas sat beside him on the floor, back resting against the wall. Tari looked up, sleepy-eyed. Are people still mad at you? He asked. Lucas smiled. Some, but not everyone matters. Tari nodded. Mama says you're brave. Lucas brushed his son's curls. She's the brave one. Tari yawned. I'm glad you found us. Lucas's throat tightened. So am I. He leaned down, kissed Tari's forehead, and whispered, I'll never lose you again. Back in the living room, Soraya waited on the couch, a blanket over her legs and a quiet in her eyes. Lucas joined her, slipping under the blanket too. They sat in silence for a while. She leaned into him. You meant every word you said on that stage. I did, even the part about terrible pancakes. Lucas smirked. Especially that part. Soraya laughed softly. Lucas turned to her, lifting her chin. I love you. She kissed him gently. Then prove it. Every single day, they stayed like that until midnight, wrapped in quiet promises. No ring, no grand declaration, just two people choosing each other, after all the noise had faded. And in that stillness, they built something stronger than reputation. They built a life. The emergency room at Houston Memorial buzzed with its usual controlled chaos. Patients being wheeled in, nurses calling orders, monitors beeping rhythmically. Soraya moved through it all with poise and precision, her ponytail tucked neatly, stethoscope swinging lightly with each step. She checked a patient's chart, gave a firm instruction to a resident, and moved swiftly toward the trauma bay. It was just another shift. Until it wasn't. Lucas walked in wearing a tuxedo. He was holding a single red rose. Heads turned instantly. Conversations dropped. Phones slid from pockets to start recording. Soraya spotted him from across the room and stopped mid-step. He didn't speak right away. He just smiled. Soraya narrowed her eyes. Lucas, what are you? He held up the rose. Behind him, the ER doors opened again. Two more people stepped in. Lucas's assistant, carrying a velvet box, and Tari, in a miniature tuxedo holding a sign that read, Mama, can we keep him forever? The entire ER fell silent. Even the trauma monitors seemed to pause. Soraya's breath caught in her chest. Lucas stepped forward. Before you ask, he began, yes, this is crazy. Yes, this is dramatic. And yes, I am absolutely serious. He turned to the crowd. She saves lives. She raised my son. And somehow, she still had room to love me. The nurses behind her were holding back tears. Soraya didn't move. She couldn't. Lucas dropped to one knee. The velvet box opened. Inside, a delicate ring, a soft gold band with 3 tiny diamonds set in a row, one for each year he had missed. I want to fall asleep beside you for the rest of my life, Lucas said. I want to be the father our son brags about, and I want to love you the way I should have loved you the first time, loudly, honestly, and without hesitation. He paused. Will you marry me? Soraya's hand flew to her mouth. The room blurred. Not from the cameras, not from the whispers, but from the overwhelming rush of everything. Tari looked up at her, eyes wide. Mama, say yes. She laughed, breath hitching, then whispered, yes. Cheers exploded through the ER. Nurses clapped. A patient in a wheelchair whistled. Someone from radiology started crying. Lucas stood and slid the ring onto her finger. Soraya threw her arms around him. You're insane, she murmured into his neck. He held her tight. Only about you. The proposal made headlines within the hour. But for once, neither of them cared, because they had stopped chasing headlines and started chasing moments. Back at the apartment that evening, Soraya sat on the edge of the bed, staring at her ring. Lucas knelt behind her, arms wrapped around her waist. You okay? He asked. She nodded, just overwhelmed. I can tone it down next time. She glanced at him over her shoulder. Promise? He grinned. No. They both laughed. He kissed her neck gently. You were made for more than quiet goodbyes. She tilted her head. And you were made for more than boardrooms. They lay down, facing each other. Soraya whispered, "We're really doing this." Lucas nodded. "We're already doing it." Her fingers traced the buttons of his shirt. "You know marriage isn't a fix, right? I'm not looking for a fix. I'm looking for a future." She smiled. "Good answer." He tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "Want to practice our vows?" Soraya smirked. "Not in front of the child." They both laughed again, softer this time, like it belonged only to them. In the quiet of the room, Tari peeked through the bedroom door. Lucas spotted him. "Come here, buddy." Tari ran in and jumped on the bed between them. He held up Soraya's hand. "Are you a princess now?" Soraya kissed his cheek. "Only if you're my prince." Tari looked at Lucas. "Then you're the dragon." Lucas raised an eyebrow. "Why the dragon?" "Because you have fire." Lucas pulled him into a playful hug. "Then you'd better behave, little knight." They all fell asleep in the same bed that night, Tari between them, breathing soft and steady. And for the first time, Lucas Varelli didn't feel like a man who had to earn his worth. He felt like a man who had found it. The wedding wasn't extravagant. It wasn't meant to be. No marble hall, no celebrity guest list, no choreographed spectacle. Just a small rooftop garden overlooking the city skyline, soft white drapes fluttering in, the breeze, and rows of simple wooden chairs filled with the only people who mattered. Soraya stood at the mirror in her friend Mina's apartment, hands trembling, slightly as she adjusted the thin veil that draped down her back. She wore a satin ivory gown with delicate embroidery along the sleeves. Nothing dramatic, nothing flashy. Just elegant, just enough. Her hair flowed in soft waves. Her smile was hesitant but full of depth. It had taken years to get here, and she wasn't walking into this with fairy tales in her head. She was walking in with eyes open. "Mama." Tari peeked in from the hallway in a tiny black tuxedo, bow tie slightly crooked. Soraya bent down, hands on his small shoulders. "You look handsome," she said. He grinned. "You look like sunshine." Her eyes watered instantly. "Thank you, baby." Tari reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out 2 plastic rings from a cereal box. "These are in case Lucas forgets the real ones." Soraya laughed. "You're always ready." He puffed up his chest. "I'm the ring guy." "Yes, you are." Meanwhile, across the garden terrace, Lucas stood in front of a mirror of his own, adjusting the cuffs of his tailored white shirt. He wore a deep navy suit with a silver pocket square and no tie, just the way Soraya liked it. His best man, Victor, handed him a small square card. "Speech." Lucas shook his head. "Don't need one." Victor smiled. "Going off the heart, huh?" Lucas looked out toward the city skyline. "I've rehearsed this day for 4 years. My heart knows it better than my head." Guests took their seats. A soft melody played. Strings, not lyrics. Soraya stepped out. Lucas's breath caught as he saw her. The moment she reached the aisle, everyone disappeared. It was just her. It had always been her. When she reached him, Lucas offered his hand. She placed hers into his without hesitation. The officiant smiled. "We are gathered today not because these two were perfect from the start, but because they chose to begin again." Soraya exhaled deeply. Lucas smiled at her gently. "Do you, Lucas Varelli, take Soraya Monroe to be your wife, your partner, your equal, your home?" "I do." "Do you, Soraya Monroe, take Lucas Varelli to be your husband, your peace, your partner, your future?" "I do." Tari stepped forward carefully, carrying the real rings on a white velvet pillow. Lucas crouched slightly and whispered, "You nailed it, little man." Tari whispered back, "Don't mess it up." The guests chuckled. Lucas turned back to Soraya and slid the ring onto her finger. His voice was low, steady, rich with sincerity. "I spent years building something that looked like success, but I didn't start living until I found you, until I lost you, and until we found our way back." Soraya's hands trembled as she returned the gesture. "I never wanted perfection," she said. "I wanted truth, and somehow, even through all the mistakes, you kept showing up. That's what makes this real." The officiant's voice rose. "By the vows you've spoken and the love you've chosen to build, I now pronounce you husband and wife." Lucas leaned forward and kissed her. No cheers yet. Just stillness, just reverence. Then, applause. After the ceremony, the reception unfolded with soft laughter, clinking glasses, and quiet conversations under string lights. There was no first dance, Just Lucas and Soraya swaying slowly to music only they could hear, with Tari sandwiched between them, his arms around both their legs, beaming. Later, Soraya sat alone on the edge of the rooftop, heels off, watching the lights flicker across the city. Lucas walked up behind her, placing a shawl over her shoulders. Cold? Not anymore. He took a seat beside her, loosening his jacket. Everything feel real yet? He asked. She nodded. Realer than anything else ever did. He reached for her hand. I didn't think I'd ever deserve this. Soraya looked at him. You stopped trying to deserve it. That's how you earned it. He kissed her softly. I'm not going to be perfect. I don't want perfect. I might make mistakes. We'll fix them together. He smiled. You know what I do want to be? She turned. What? He leaned in, forehead to hers. Yours. Every day, in every way, and under the open sky with nothing left to prove, they kissed like people who finally understood love wasn't about never breaking. It was about knowing who to heal with. The cabin sat nestled in the quiet arms of the mountain, surrounded by tall pines and cool winds that hummed through their branches like lullabies. Lucas had chosen it himself. No staff, no distractions, just wood, warmth, and windows wide enough to let in every bit of peace they hadn't known they needed. Soraya stepped inside and exhaled slowly, running her fingers along the hand-carved railing of the staircase. This is beautiful, she whispered. Lucas dropped their bags near the entryway. I wanted something different, not opulent, just ours. She turned to face him. You remembered. I remember everything now. That first evening, they didn't rush anything. No expectations. Just 2 glasses of wine by the fire and the soft sound of crickets outside the window. Soraya curled her feet beneath her on the couch, blanket wrapped around her legs. Lucas sat across from her, watching the firelight dance over her features. Do you miss it? She asked after a while. Miss... what? The city, the noise, your office, your old rhythm. Lucas thought for a moment. I miss who I pretended to be a lot less than I thought I would. She smiled. You're quieter now. I've learned that silence doesn't mean absence. She nodded slowly. It can also mean presence. He leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. What about you? Do you miss being alone? Soraya tilted her head. I miss control sometimes, but not enough to trade what we have now. Lucas reached out and brushed a thumb across her knuckles. Do we really have it? She paused, then squeezed his hand. We're building it. The second day brought long walks through the woods. Soraya picked wildflowers and tucked them behind her ear. Lucas took photos on an old Polaroid camera and stuck them on the fridge with magnets shaped like bears. They cooked dinner together, fumbling over unfamiliar spices, and laughed when they burned the rice. Afterward, they lay on the rug in front of the fire, heads touching, feet in opposite directions. What's your biggest fear now? She asked. Lucas turned his head toward her. Waking up and finding out I'd gone back to who I used to be. She didn't answer right away, then said, that man was never all bad. He didn't know what love looked like, Lucas murmured. Soraya stared at the ceiling. He knew what it looked like. He just thought it had a price tag. That night, they made love as if it were language. No rush, no frenzy, just slow, deep connection. Lucas moved over her with reverence, his hands patient, his mouth discovering her all over again like a prayer. Soraya whispered his name not out of need, but out of peace. When he entered her, their eyes stayed locked. No dimmed lights, no curtains closed, only openness and breath and intention. They reached their climax not as 2 people recovering from brokenness, but as 2 souls willing to build something from its pieces. Afterward, Lucas traced patterns on her bare shoulder with his finger. Thank you, he whispered. For what? For staying soft when life tried to harden you. Soraya blinked, eyes glassy. Thank you for seeing me again. He kissed her forehead. She fell asleep with his heartbeat in her ear. The next morning, Soraya sat on the porch in a flannel shirt, his shirt, and cradled a mug of coffee in both hands. Lucas joined her quietly, placing a blanket around her shoulders. We never talked about it, she said. About what? Your father. Lucas stayed quiet for a moment, then sat beside her. He told me once that men don't apologize. They replace. They build over what they ruin. Soraya's brow furrowed. That's a sad way to live. Lucas nodded. It's why he died alone. Soraya rested her head against his arm. "You're not him." "I know," he said, "because I have you." They stayed another 2 days in the cabin. They read. They danced barefoot. They napped in the middle of conversations and woke up laughing. No one was watching. No one needed to be impressed. They weren't trying to be perfect anymore. They were simply choosing each other. On the last night, Soraya stood by the fire in one of Lucas's old sweatshirts, her hair damp from a bath. Lucas sat on the couch, reading something on his tablet. She walked over, took it gently from his hands and set it aside. Then she climbed into his lap, straddling him, her hands slipping around his neck. He smiled up at her. Again? She nodded. Again. And this time, when they came together, it was both ritual and reminder. That love wasn't found in grand speeches. It was in the quiet decisions to stay. The first board meeting after their honeymoon was unlike any Lucas had ever called. No one knew what to expect. The calendar entry simply read, "Vision Reset, 9 a.m., Executive Conference Room." Executives arrived sharp, dressed in tailored suits, portfolios in hand. The usual tone in the room, measured, calculated, was replaced with something closer to curiosity and quiet unease. At 8:59, Lucas entered, alone. No assistant, no tech team, no security. He wore a crisp white shirt with the sleeves rolled and a dark gray blazer over dark slacks. No tie. He walked to the head of the table and stood rather than sitting. The room fell silent. He didn't need to raise his voice. "Some of you have worked with me for over a decade," he began. "You've seen me negotiate billion-dollar contracts, navigate recessions, and build partnerships across the globe." Several nodded silently. "But today, I'm asking you to see something else." He paused. "The company we built is impressive. It's efficient. It's dominant." He looked around the table. "But it's no longer aligned." A few eyebrows rose. Lucas continued. "We built a health company and forgot about people." He tapped his finger once on the tabletop. "Last month, a photo leaked of me and my son. Some of you panicked. Investors asked if it would damage the brand. Media consultants wanted to draft statements to soften the blow." He let the moment settle. No more softening. He stepped back from the table and clicked a remote. A slide appeared on the screen behind him. Varelli Health Tech, from product-driven to people-led. Gasps. Murmurs. "This is not a suggestion. This is direction." He gestured to the presentation, now flipping through slides. New initiatives. Revised policies. Ethics and compliance over speed and profit. A patient-first research division. On-site mental health services for staff. Family leave extended across all departments. And at the heart of it all, an advisory committee to oversee the moral compass of Varelli's next decade. He clicked one final slide. It simply read, "Led by Soraya Monroe." The room erupted. One of the older board members stood immediately. "This is reckless. Personal bias has no place in company leadership." Lucas didn't flinch. "You're wrong. It should have had a place from the start." Another executive raised her hand. "She has no corporate background. She has real-world experience, medical training, and the courage to say things I refused to hear for years," Lucas replied. "That's more valuable to our future than another MBA with spreadsheets." One of the younger directors spoke up. "I've read her case reports from Halston. They're grounded and solution-driven." Lucas nodded. "Exactly. That's the new standard." An older man at the far end of the table, the longest-serving board member, removed his glasses. "If you go through with this, Lucas, we'll lose partnerships. Investors might walk." Lucas folded his arms. "Then let them." He glanced around the table, voice calm but unshakable. "We can either lead in silence or lead in integrity. I'm choosing the second." That afternoon, Lucas returned home early. Soraya was in the kitchen, chopping carrots. Tari sat at the table with finger paints, proudly smearing the colors into a lopsided rainbow. Lucas kissed the top of Soraya's head. She smiled. "How'd it go?" He leaned on the counter. "Half are still in shock. The other half are scrambling to find the old version of me. Will they?" "No." "I buried him." She wiped her hands on a towel and turned to face him. "Are you ready for the fallout?" He shrugged. "I've faced worse." She narrowed her eyes. "Be honest." Lucas leaned closer, cupping her jaw. "I'm terrified, but I've never been more certain." That evening, Lucas took out an old key from his drawer, a master pass to his penthouse office downtown. He placed it in an envelope and handed it to Soraya. "What's this?" she asked. I'm moving to the second floor. She stared at him. You're leaving your office? I want to work where the decisions affect real people, not 30 floors up in a glass box. She shook her head. You're serious. I want Tari to grow up knowing his dad didn't hide behind doors. I want my team to look me in the eye and see a leader, not a brand. Soraya stepped forward and kissed him. Then you're becoming exactly the man I prayed you would. 2 days later, Soraya walked into the Varelli Health Tech headquarters for the first time as an appointed leader. She didn't wear a power suit. Just a deep blue dress, simple earrings, and a look of calm strength. People whispered. Others stared. But she moved with grace, completely unfazed. When she stepped into the new advisory floor, she paused and looked at the nameplate already on the glass wall. Human Impact and Patient Ethics Division, Chair, Soraya Monroe behind her. Lucas walked in quietly. You okay? She nodded. Feels surreal. He placed a hand on her back. You're not here to fit in. You're here to shift things. She smiled. I planned to. That night, they celebrated with pizza on the living room floor. Tari wore a paper crown that read, Assistant Vice President of Juice Boxes. Lucas made a toast using a sippy cup. To starting over, he said. Soraya raised her glass. And doing it better. Tari giggled. And making sure bedtime stories never get canceled again. Lucas pulled him close. Deal. Lucas never set another alarm clock. Not because he stopped working, but because his son's footsteps at dawn became his new rhythm. Mama says no cartoons before breakfast, Tari would announce, climbing into their bed in dinosaur pajamas, stuffed bear in tow. Lucas would smile, pull him close, and whisper, but she didn't say no tickles. And just like that, their days began with laughter. At the Varelli headquarters, change wasn't just policy, it became presence. Lucas cut his schedule in half. 3 days in office, 2 remote. Evenings were sacred, no calls after 6. No meetings that started later than 4. The executive team protested until they saw it working. Profits didn't drop. In fact, productivity rose. Staff stayed later because they wanted to. Departments communicated more. People weren't exhausted. They were energized. Because when the person at the top starts living differently, the whole culture shifts. Soraya became more than a symbol. She became a voice. Every project went through her ethics review team. Marketing campaigns, clinical research trials, pharmaceutical partnerships, all now required not only ROI projections, but human impact assessments. Some resisted, but most adapted, because she didn't command respect. She earned it. Her office stayed simple. No corner view, just a wall of photos, patients, staff, children, and a whiteboard filled with handwritten reminders, speak plainly, lead with care, no one is invisible. Lucas started attending preschool parent circles. At first, it was awkward. A billionaire sitting on a rug with juice boxes and glitter glue, but he didn't flinch. He cut construction paper with safety scissors and asked questions like every other parent. He even joined the class email list, replying with emojis like, Tari loved the field trip. We'll bring extra snacks next week. Can I still please reply for the Father's Day breakfast? Soraya watched it all with quiet pride. The man who once negotiated with Fortune 500 giants was now fighting over who packed the better apple slices. One afternoon, Tari sat at the kitchen table drawing with crayons while Lucas cooked dinner. Are you still a boss? Tari asked, not looking up from his paper. Lucas turned from the stove. Why do you ask? Because you don't go away in airplanes anymore. Lucas walked over and crouched beside him. I'm still a boss. But now, I boss people better. Tari nodded seriously. Because you're home more. Lucas kissed his cheek. Exactly. Soraya, standing at the sink, felt her chest tighten. Not from sadness, from gratitude. That weekend, they visited a community clinic funded by Varelli's new outreach branch. Lucas didn't bring a camera crew. Soraya didn't wear a name badge. They just showed up. They helped unpack boxes of medical supplies. Soraya took blood pressure readings. Lucas played hopscotch with a group of kids while Tari handed out juice. No speeches, no media, just presence. Later, one of the nurses approached Soraya quietly. Is it true? She asked. You used to be on night shifts? Soraya smiled. 3 years straight. The nurse stared at her. And now you're married to him. Soraya laughed. He married me. That evening, back home, Lucas opened a leather-bound notebook. Inside were sketches of a new initiative, designed not by marketing analysts, but by Soraya and 3 other frontline medical professionals. At the top, in Lucas's handwriting, the TerryCare Project, a pediatric mobile unit initiative, bringing healthcare to underserved communities, named after the boy who taught him what it meant to lead with heart. Soraya leaned over his shoulder. "You're really going to do this?" Lucas nodded. "We'll pilot 5 units next quarter." Tari ran into the room holding a paper crown. "Can I be the logo?" Lucas lifted him into his lap. "You already are." They hosted their first family dinner at the new house a month later. Lucas invited his estranged sister, whom he hadn't seen since their father's funeral. Soraya invited Mina, her best friend who'd once picked her up from the hospital at midnight with a newborn and no plan. The table was long, full of laughter and clinking glasses. Tari stood at the head, tapping his spoon against his cup. "Excuse me, everyone." The room quieted. "I just want to say, this is the best day ever." Lucas leaned over. "Why?" "Because you're not on your phone, and Mama is smiling a lot." Soraya reached for Lucas's hand under the table. He held on tight. Later that night, Lucas stood outside on the porch while Soraya tucked Tari in. He stared up at the stars, silent, steady, always watching. Soraya joined him, wrapping a shawl around her shoulders. "What are you thinking?" she asked. He didn't answer at first. Then, that I spent years wanting the world to know my name. She leaned on the railing beside him. "And now?" He turned to her. "Now I just want my son to say my name and smile." The ballroom at the Varelli Foundation's annual Future of Care Summit was filled to capacity. Doctors, policymakers, philanthropists, students, journalists, they had all gathered under a domed ceiling of golden chandeliers and echoing acoustics. This event had always been prestigious, but this year there was more than curiosity in the air. There was anticipation. Lucas was scheduled to speak, but not as a CEO, as something else entirely. Backstage, Soraya straightened his jacket collar. "You're sure you don't want a speechwriter?" He shook his head. "Every word I'm about to say, I've lived." She held his gaze. "Then say it like it matters." Lucas gave a small, quiet smile. "Because it does." He stepped onto the stage. Applause followed, long, measured. He stood behind the podium, looked out over the crowd, and took a slow breath. "No slides tonight," he began. "No charts, no graphs. Just a truth I should have known years ago." The room quieted instantly. "I started this company because I believed healthcare could be faster, smarter, and more efficient. And we did that. We launched products, closed deals, raised capital." He paused. "But somewhere in all that success, I forgot what real care looks like." He glanced toward the front row where Soraya sat, her hands folded over, her lap, and Tari beside her coloring on the back of the event program. Lucas looked back at the audience. "I forgot that care isn't found in algorithms or in quarterly growth. It's found in time, in listening, in looking someone in the eye and choosing to stay when it's uncomfortable." He let that breathe. 4 years ago, I lost someone who meant everything to me because I thought being present was optional. I thought love would wait while I chased recognition. A hush settled across the room. Then one day, I heard a boy crying in a hospital lobby. Several heads tilted slightly forward. I didn't know who he was. I didn't know he was mine. I just knew that no one had stopped, so I did. He swallowed, and that moment cracked something open in me. A moment I now call the beginning. He paced slowly to the right side of the stage. "Since then, we've changed more than our logo. We've changed our purpose." He gestured to the banner behind him that read, "Innovation with compassion. Progress with accountability. Real innovation is making sure no one gets left behind, not patients, not families, not the people delivering care in the middle of the night with no recognition." He locked eyes with a young nurse in the third row. "We've created new systems, launched mobile units and extended services. But the most important thing we've done is listen." His voice lowered slightly. "To voices we used to ignore." Lucas paused, then turned back to center stage. "Some of you came here tonight expecting a tech pitch, a product reveal, a keynote about where we're going." He shook his head gently. "Where we're going doesn't start with silicon and sensors." He looked toward Soraya again. "It starts with forgiveness, with humility, with showing up, again and again, until trust grows back like scar tissue, stronger than before." In the front row, Soraya blinked hard. Tari tugged at her sleeve and whispered, "Is he talking about us?" She nodded slowly. All of us. Lucas returned to the podium. I'm not proud of everything I've done, but I am proud of who I've become because of who stood by me. And because of one boy with a teddy bear who looked up at me and said, "Are you a doctor?" A ripple of laughter, and I wasn't. But I was someone who could choose to care. He ended the speech quietly. No matter how far you've strayed from what matters, you can come back. You can build again. You can lead with love. He stepped back, nodded once, and the crowd stood. A standing ovation, not for a product, but for a person. Later that night they returned home. Tari was asleep in the back seat. Soraya sat beside Lucas on the porch swing, curled into his side under a fleece blanket. "You were brave tonight," she said. "I just told the truth. That's the hardest kind of bravery." He kissed her temple. "Thank you for giving me another chance." Soraya turned toward him. "You didn't just ask for a chance, Lucas. You earned it. You lived it." He held her hand and looked out at the quiet street. "I don't want our story to be about redemption," he said. She raised an eyebrow. "No? I want it to be about awareness, about waking up before it's too late, about choosing better even when the world rewards worse." She smiled faintly. "Then tell it that way, and live it louder." Inside, Tari had stirred and wandered out, blanket dragging behind him. Lucas scooped him up effortlessly, tucking him into his chest. "Did the people clap?" Tari mumbled. Lucas nodded. "They did? Good. Because you remembered the most important part." Lucas smiled. "What part?" "That you're mine." He looked down at the boy nestled against him, and then at the woman who had taught him how to be more than powerful. She had taught him how to be present. And finally, Lucas Varelli understood that legacies weren't made in skyscrapers. They were made in whispers, in kitchens, in promises kept, and in love given back. The new house wasn't flashy. No gates, no marble columns, no rooftop helipad, just a wide front porch with space for a swing, a backyard big enough for a garden, and a quiet neighborhood where everyone waved at each other in the mornings. Lucas stepped out of the moving van, carrying 2 boxes labeled Tari's Dinosaurs in black marker. Soraya stood barefoot on the porch, keys in hand, smiling as if she'd just unlocked a new chapter with a single turn. Tari ran circles around them both with a paper crown taped together from packing labels. "This is our castle now," he declared. Lucas leaned against the post and watched them, his family, his world, laughing in the morning sun. Inside, they unpacked slowly. Not everything needed to be perfect. Not everything had to match. Lucas insisted on hanging Tari's finger paintings on the kitchen wall, even when Soraya joked that she wanted a minimalist aesthetic. "Minimalist people don't raise maximalist kids," Lucas replied. Soraya rolled her eyes and laughed. By evening, the living room was still full of boxes, but the fridge was stocked, the sheets were on the bed, and Terry had already claimed the closet under the stairs as his secret base. Soraya sat on the floor in sweatpants, folding towels while Lucas screwed in the legs of the coffee table. "You ever think about what our life would have looked like if we hadn't crashed and burned?" she asked. Lucas didn't pause. "It wouldn't have been this." She looked at him. "This," he said, gesturing around the house, "is what happens when two people choose to learn each other the hard way, and then choose again." Soraya set the towel down and crawled across the rug to kiss him. No passion needed, just clarity. Later that week, Soraya stood in the bathroom staring down at a slim white stick in her hand. Positive. She blinked once, then again, then sat slowly on the edge of the tub, her hand trembling slightly. A soft knock came at the door. "Lucas, you okay?" She opened it. He read her face before she spoke. Then his gaze dropped to the test in her hand. There was no gasp, no shout, just a long, slow breath. Then he dropped to his knees, wrapped his arms around her waist, and buried his face in her belly. Soraya's fingers slipped through his hair. "You're crying," she whispered. He shook his head, voice muffled. "I'm breathing." They didn't tell Tari right away. Instead, they let the days move gently. Lucas began cooking more, experimenting with stews and sauces. Soraya started napping on the couch halfway through movies, her head in his lap. Tari kept sneaking carrots to the neighbor's cat through the fence. And in between it all, they laughed, quiet, shared laughs that made no noise but lived loudly inside the walls. One Saturday morning, they brought out the ultrasound photo and called Tari into the kitchen. Lucas lifted him onto the counter. "We have a surprise," Soraya said. Tari narrowed his eyes. "Better than pancakes?" Lucas held up the image. Tari tilted his head. What is it? Soraya smiled. That's someone joining our team soon. Tari's mouth fell open. A puppy? Lucas laughed. Close. A baby. Tari blinked. A baby? From your belly? Soraya nodded. He looked between them. Does it know about me? Lucas ruffled his hair. It's heard stories. Tari grinned. I'll teach it how to make cereal. They spent that night together in bed, Lucas's hand resting gently over the place where life was growing again. Soraya whispered into the darkness, I didn't think we'd get another first time. Lucas kissed her shoulder. We're not getting another first. We're getting our real second. They didn't change much. Still had messy mornings. Still misplaced the remote daily. Still argued over how much screen time was too much. But now, their life felt settled, not like something they were chasing, but something they had grown into. Lucas no longer checked his phone before brushing his teeth. Soraya stopped second-guessing her joy. And Tari kept growing. The nursery took shape, slowly. Lucas painted the walls a soft sage green, while Soraya sat cross-legged on the floor, handing him supplies and sipping water from a glass that never left her side. One evening, as they unpacked a baby blanket knitted by Soraya's late grandmother, Lucas paused. He held it up, touched the threads gently, then looked at her. You think I'll be better this time? He asked quietly. Soraya crossed the room and placed her hand over his heart. You already are. That night, Lucas stood in the doorway of the half-finished nursery, watching the ceiling fan spin slowly. He whispered to the room, I'll be here, every step. And maybe the walls didn't respond, but something inside him did. Something that had once feared fatherhood now looked forward to 3 a.m., cries and tiny fingers gripping his thumb. The next morning, Soraya found him asleep in the glider, holding a stuffed bear with one arm and an open book in the other. She took a picture, then kissed his forehead, and whispered, You're home. The school gym was decorated with construction paper stars and handmade banners. Heroes in our lives was the theme for this year's student showcase. Parents, grandparents, and guardians filled the folding chairs while toddlers wiggled. On laps and teachers paced the aisles with clipboards and gentle shushing hands. Lucas adjusted his tie. Nervous, Soraya leaned in, whispering, He'll be fine. Lucas exhaled. He gets his nerves from me. No, she said with a soft smile. He gets his heart from you. On stage, one child after another spoke into the too-tall microphone about their heroes. Firefighters, nurses, big sisters. One kid even chose a cartoon hedgehog. Then came the name. Next up, we have Tari Varelli. Lucas's spine straightened. Soraya clasped her hands in her lap. Tari stepped onto the stage in his navy blazer and sneakers, holding a note card that looked suspiciously blank from the audience. He stood behind the microphone, glanced at the crowd, and gave a quick wave. Then, no reading. He simply spoke. My hero is my dad, he said. A murmur of soft awes spread through the crowd. Tari continued. When I met him, he didn't know me, but he stopped to help me anyway. A few adults shifted in their seats. He gave me a jacket and told me I was safe. And he didn't even know I was his yet. Lucas's jaw clenched. But after he found out, he never went away, not even one time. Tari tapped the mic accidentally. Oops. The crowd chuckled. He builds stuff, like big buildings. But now he builds pancakes and bedtime stories and forts. More laughter. Softer this time. My mama says he used to be very busy and important. I think he still is. But now he's busy loving us. Lucas's eyes blurred. Tari looked down once, then up. I hope I grow up to be like him. Not because he's rich, but because he knows how to come back when he's made a mistake. And that's what heroes do. Silence. Then, applause. Louder than it had been all night. Back in their seats, Lucas covered his face with one hand. Soraya rubbed his back. I told you he'd be fine, she whispered. Lucas turned to her, voice thick. I thought I taught him everything I knew. She shook her head, smiling. You're teaching him something better. How to stay. That evening, Tari ran into the kitchen still buzzing with pride. Did you see how everyone clapped? Lucas scooped him up. You lit that room up. I want to do more speeches. Start with your homework, Soraya said, walking in with a bowl of sliced apples. But speeches are like homework. Nice try, she teased. Later, after bedtime, Lucas lingered at the foot of Tari's bed, watching him. Sleep, one arm thrown over the stuffed bear he'd had since the hospital. Soraya joined him, her belly now gently rounded, her presence a quiet glow. You know what I realized? Lucas whispered. She looked at him. That I spent so long trying to be a man the world applauded. I forgot to be the man my child would talk about one day. Soraya leaned into him. Now you're both. They stood there for a while, in the stillness of night, with only the hum of the baby monitor and the soft rhythm of breath. Not in a castle, not on a yacht, but in a place where legacies are truly born, a child's heart, a woman's trust, and a man's choice to return and remain. The hospital room was dim. Soft candle-shaped LED lights glowed from the windowsill, casting amber hues across the quiet space. The noise of the outside world was muffled, forgotten. It was just the four of them now. Soraya lay resting against the pillows, her face glowing with exhaustion and awe. Two tiny bundles lay nestled against her chest, wrapped in matching cream swaddles. One girl, one boy. Lucas sat at the edge of the bed, unable to tear his eyes away from the scene in front of him. He hadn't spoken in minutes. Just watched her breathe, watched them move. His heart wasn't beating in his chest anymore. It was lying there, wrapped in fabric, nestled beneath her chin. Soraya stirred softly. They look like you, she whispered. Lucas leaned closer, brushing a strand of damp hair from her forehead. Then they're already perfect. She smiled faintly. No, they're real. That's better. He blinked. Real? Real like spit up and sleepless nights. Real like burps and lullabies and off-key nursery rhymes. Lucas chuckled quietly, his voice thick. I'll sing on key if you let me practice. Please don't, she said with a tired grin. Let's not traumatize them so early. One of the babies, his daughter, let out a tiny squeak. Lucas reached gently, lifting her into his arms. His fingers trembled. He looked at her as if she were light-given form. Her nose scrunched, her lips puckered. She yawned. And in that moment, he forgot balance sheets, executive meetings, global expansion strategies. He forgot the weight of the name Varelli. All that remained was this tiny life, and the woman who gave it to him. He stood, swaying slightly with the baby in his arms. Soraya watched him, her gaze soft and full. You remember the hospital lobby? She asked, voice barely audible. Lucas looked down at their daughter, like it was this morning. Soraya shifted, careful not to wake the boy still sleeping on her chest. You looked like a man with nothing left, but when you sat beside him, everything changed. Lucas swallowed, jaw tight. That day in the lobby saved my life. Silence. Not the kind that fills a room with absence, but the kind that settles when nothing more needs to be said. Lucas lowered into the chair beside the bed, his daughter still asleep in his arms. He glanced at the boy nestled against Soraya and leaned in to kiss his son's forehead. Hey, he whispered. I'm your dad. Soraya smiled, eyes closed. You're ours. Later, a nurse entered quietly, placed fresh water by the bedside, and slipped back out without a word. Lucas glanced out the window. The city skyline blinked faintly in the distance, but it held no allure. Not tonight. All the light he needed was here, candle soft, heartbeat warm, and nestled between sheets and skin and soul. He stood, kissed Soraya's hand, then gently transferred the sleeping girl into the bassinet. Then he reached for the boy and did the same. His hands lingered over the two of them. I missed so much with Terry, he murmured. Not this time. Soraya opened her eyes again. You came back for him. That matters more. Lucas turned to her. I'm staying for them. And for the first time in a long time, that word, stay, didn't feel like a promise. It felt like a place. He slid beneath the covers beside her, his arms pulling her close. Their hands intertwined over her stomach, where life had just been. And in the dark, they whispered things only two people who had broken and rebuilt together could understand. No grand declarations, no fireworks, just a simple truth. Love wasn't a rescue. It was a choice, one you make every morning and every night. As the room faded into quiet and the newborns slept side by side, Soraya nestled deeper into his chest and whispered, We're not perfect. Lucas kissed her hair. No, but we're here. He closed his eyes, inhaling her warmth. Always, soft fade out, no wealth, no spotlight, just a family, a legacy of presence, a love that didn't just return, It stayed. Thank you for joining us at Love and Twilight, where every story glows with romance and hope. If our words touched your heart, don't just listen. Be part of the journey. Like, share, and subscribe to keep love's light shining. Share your thoughts in the comments. Your stories and voices make this space truly magical. Together, let's build a community where love is celebrated and Twilight always inspires. Stay close, dream deeper, and let's keep this beautiful journey alive.